Whether you have a job or if you're looking for a new one, the use of technology to find your next position can be more complicated than the last time you looked for a job. On this episode of Today in Tech, we're going to chat whether about technology is helping or hurting the job hunt for many candidates. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Today in Tech. I'm Keith Shaw. Joining me on the show today is Chewy Senanayake, a human resources expert who has assisted with more than 50,000 job placements as CEO of the Job Helpers. Welcome to the show, Chewy.
Thank you so much, Keith. Thanks for having me here today.
How did I do on the pronunciation of your last name? Because I was afraid I was going to... I got close, I think, right?
You did fantastic. You get it. You got it, man. You said it perfectly fine. I haven't heard that in a while.
Oh, good. Well, yeah, because you try phonetically and it's like, no, it's not phonetic. So, all right, let's just jump into some of the topics here. I got the impression that trying to find a job, about 20 to 30 years ago, it didn't seem as hard as it feels today. There's been a lot of technology improvements. There's been job sites. There's been, applying for a job is not just filling out a piece of paper, mailing it in, or going into the company and filling out an application. We now have artificial intelligence that is scanning resumes or being used to write resumes and all those kind of things. So, talk us through what changes you've seen in the space for companies that are trying to find the right candidates for their jobs that they have, but also from the job hunter perspective.
You bet. No, absolutely. So you're absolutely right. 20, 30 years ago, you can just a handshake was kind of the mandatory thing for you to get a job. Nowadays, AI, like you said, and then data screening and data scraping and everything that's happening in the tech space has kind of influenced hiring directly. Because what these employers are thinking, okay, if we were to get a pool of candidates, maybe 500 to 1,000 people that they can look at fairly quickly, and then have their screener software, we call it the ATS in human resources terms, applicant tracking system software programs, 93.7% of employers, if you do your research, you'll see that many employers, medium to large size companies, are using that kind of technologies. You'll also see that in education. You'll also see that the same technology being used kind of in every dimension industry that you can think of. So we're kind of living in more of a tech age, and data-driven recruiting is kind of the name of the game for these employers, because they're thinking, okay, if we can look at a lot of candidates and make a decision fairly quickly to interview who they would like to, that's a better option for them. So that's what we're really seeing right now.
And you started seeing this probably around 2010. Is that a right time frame?
Correct. I mean, when I was at Microsoft, a very interesting dilemma that occurred in my brain where I was talking to a hiring manager and a recruiter at the time. This was back in 2013 era. And when I was talking to the recruiter, they were like, you don't have the keywords. And the hiring manager was like, yeah, this resume is too dense, too much. I don't want to read this. So then I was thinking, okay, what am I doing wrong? What can I do to correct that?
Yeah.
So I kind of, the keyword piece really got me to thinking, okay, what are keywords? What are they doing on the other side? That got me to this research process where I started to think about, okay, what are keywords and why are they using them? And then I soon realized, okay, they're using a screening platform, even at Microsoft at the time. For you to pass through that system, you need to have certain specific algorithmic data points like keywords, phrases, topics, lingo, verbiage, competencies, years of experience and achievements. Mm-hmm. So they can rack up all of that information on their platform. And then they're going through these job applications, comparing that with the job postings. And then all of a sudden now they have a better match for the positions.
And you were telling me before we jumped on the recording that there's a huge jump in the number of companies that are using ATS platforms for jobs. It went from somewhere like 64% of companies to now 97%. I mean, that's almost 100%. Like, it would be rare to find a company that's not using an ATS. What were the reasons for that? I mean, I know the answer, but I want you to tell me.
No, absolutely, Keith. That's a great question. The reason for that is because everything changed during the pandemic, especially the hiring process. Even the companies who were kind of, brick and mortar or mom and pop shops had to kind of evolve themselves super fast to the point where, okay, we're doing all of this online nowadays. Even the businesses were going online versus and asking employees to work from home. So that dynamic really brought up this applicant tracking system software to the forefront, or AI systems and screening processes to the forefront. So what really happened was we went from, like you said, 64% before the pandemic, which is 2 years ago, 3 years ago now, 2020, to nowadays 93.7% of employers using that same exact system. And guess what? If you do a quick Google search yourself, you'll see the average time a recruiter or a hiring manager spending on a resume these days is about 7 to 10 seconds,
Wow.
which is not a lot of time.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to go through some of the things that people probably assume they should do if they're looking for a new job. And I want, with your experience, I need you to say whether people should, yes, do this, no, do this, or explore something else. So first one is pretty easy. Should they update their resume to fit a specific style, or insert these keywords, match it to the job description, that kind of things? Or I'm sorry, how much updating of the resume should they do? Can they still get by with a generic resume for a lot of different positions, or do you need one specific resume for each job that you're applying for? There's a lot in there.
Yeah, I get this question a lot, right? So every person I talk to about their resume, because we do free resume reviews all day at the Job Helpers.
All right, that's your first plug. That's it. No more plugs after that.
All right. So that free resume review that we offer to anyone, right? So what we do is we tell them, hey, think of it this way, okay? If you are a really good salesman, what you're not going to do is you're not going to customize for every sales pitch for every prospect, right? Which is really hard to do. They might have their own unique situation, but then find the needs, find the things that you can address right away, and then start to pitch. So that's the same process you want to take with the resume writing or resume building process, where you want to ask yourself questions like, okay, find your own scope, meaning ask yourself questions like what kind of titles, what kind of locations, what kind of salary expectations, and what industries you want to target. Now you're narrowing it down to the point where you can clearly say, okay, these are the type of positions. You can ballpark it, 2-3 positions that you can think of that would fit with each other. And then think about, okay, now I need to think about all the key words. So that means you want to go through some of these job postings out of, say, LinkedIn, Indeed, Career Builder, ZipRecruiter, major job boards, company sites. Now you're doing a little bit of legwork yourself, but when you're doing it initially, you don't have to customize the resume as you go. You're doing that up front, maybe take a weekend, Saturday or Sunday, and then going through, drawing up all these job postings and then looking through them and using, as a company, we would use the ATS, applicant tracking system software program, to get a more of an accurate match of those keywords. And then we know, okay, 15 years of experience is listed 95% of the time by 100 jobs. So that means that 15 plus years needs to go on the first sentence because you have 25 years of experience. You don't need to list out 25 years because the system cannot read it, but it can read 15 plus years. That's what we need to add.
Okay.
So just like that, you're assembling the resume based off of what kind of key terms are getting repeated most of the time. So that way you can apply for more.
What about simple things like just, font choices, pictures, those types of things? Like should I, it used to be you could spruce up a resume to jump out from all of the boring black and white ones by using different file designs, formats, things like that. Does that matter? Or now, because that it's going to be read by a computer, at least initially, that you don't necessarily have to do that? Like, should you format your resume to fit these ATSs? Plain text. Like, again, if I used Comic Sans on mine, I'd probably get thrown out by a human, but an ATS doesn't care about Comic Sans, right? Or does it?
So, a great question. I mean, fonts wise, think about if you're using Microsoft Word or Google Docs or any of these documents, word processing fonts are the ones that I would use, meaning ATS systems are a little bit lagged per se, because a lot of companies are using these systems. They're expensive, over $100,000 to put in a system like that. So they're not updating those systems at least for 7 to 10 years. So what you want to think about is you don't want to use graphics or pictures on your resume. The reason why is because those systems cannot read through those pictures. It could give an error. So, or the format itself, we were talking about that earlier. If you have like a side-by-side format where you have your name on the left column, and then you have your contact details on the left side, you have core competencies listed on the left side, and then on the right side, you might have your professional experience and the rest of the work history. Well, the difficulty is the system is reading the left column first, and then it might even not move to the right column because it reads from left to right, so top to bottom. So you want to think about a format choice that would work through the ATS system. A good way to identify if your resume is ATS compatible, what we have seen in the past is go on LinkedIn or, Indeed. Mm-hmm. Go on Indeed, upload your resume for a job, any job really. Once you upload the job, upload your resume to a specific role, Indeed will ask you either to manually upload or add content to their platform, right, because the ATS system couldn't read the content listed on the resume, or some parts are missing out of your resume. It didn't get copied and pasted correctly. That's why you need to add that information. About the font choices, you can use Tacoma, you could use Calibri, and then you could use Arial. Those are the 3 fonts that we would recommend at the Job Helpers.
And that's 2.
Oh, sorry.
All right. So the next question would be in terms of the LinkedIn profile. Yes, update that, keep that going. Like, is that the major site where you want to present yourself in addition to your resume? And then the next question would be, the job boards. It's definitely yes, no, or other alternative for LinkedIn.
Yes, for LinkedIn, absolutely. LinkedIn is expensive for employers, about $100 per posting per day, I think, on LinkedIn. So absolutely yes, because employers wouldn't spend their money if they're not serious.
Okay. And then what about going to other job boards such as Glassdoor, Indeed, ZipRecruiter? Are those worth it? Or is that just if more for the job search rather than the other tools that they might offer?
Glassdoor is an important tool because it can show you salary. So that's the reason why someone or anyone would go to Glassdoor, to be completely honest. Those jobs are maybe posted on LinkedIn as well, but Glassdoor is a good place. Indeed has the most amount of jobs. So as far as volume, I believe for you to post a job on Indeed, it's about $38 on average per day. That's what they tell you. So, looking at Indeed and LinkedIn probably are better choices. ZipRecruiter is good with their marketing platform, meaning they'll send you jobs all the time. But I've heard that, it's just throwing out jobs for you, sometimes even sales jobs for an engineering,
right?
Like person that's a specialty. So that could be the issue there.
So have these ATS platforms, from what you've seen, have they evolved? Are they starting to add more artificial intelligence or generative AI to their processes, or is it still from that 2010 era where it's scanning resumes, creating then a checklist and ranking for the appropriate keywords? Have you seen improvements in the ATS platforms, especially when it comes to machine learning and automation?
It is definitely improving. The 3 systems that we've seen out there that are predominantly used are going to be Workday, ADP, and iCIMS. ADP has been out there for a long time. They've been doing payment process, payroll,
yep,
and other things. And Workday it's a newer player. I believe the CEO just sold his company, if I don't quote me on it, but so Workday is the newest player in the market, and Workday also has its own ERP platform that they're building right now, or they have it out there, and people, employers are subscribing to it. So Workday is a newer platform. Workday works the best according to my knowledge, but those platforms will take a little bit. It'll have multiple iterations. So within the next 5 years or so, we'll see that predictive analytics coming into play for sure.
Okay. And you know, on the flip side, with a job seeker, should they use generative AI tools, you know, like ChatGPT or some other search engine type thing, you know, things where they're into a search engine that can also create tools from generative AI? Should they use those to help them write, you know, a resume or a cover letter or anything like that? Does that help, or are you seeing more companies utilize generative AI to find out if Gen AI was used, and they might ding you if it can detect that you know, an AI wrote your, you know, cover letter, for example?
Yes, that's a concern. And the other concern is privacy, because just imagine if you work for a large company, they have confidentiality built out, or even a small company or medium-sized, whatever that company looks like, they might have confidentiality set around the fact that, okay, you cannot share some of that detail. If you were to add all of this information, copy and paste it to ChatGPT, that might be an issue for you personally, because ChatGPT is OpenAI, so anyone can access it. It's like a sandbox. So that's one of those issues that you're going to run into. But you can have specific prompts on ChatGPT that could help you. Like, say, for instance, be a resume writer, ChatGPT, and then build me or give me the best 10 examples out of my career based out of this resume that I've copied and pasted. That's a good way to do it. Or find me the tech jobs or IT manager jobs and then bring that up to me. Or look at this job posting and then give me maybe the key terms or keywords. But the difficulty with ChatGPT is ChatGPT's last iteration came in 2021, I believe. Yeah. So the AI, the ATS platform is a little lagging, I believe.
I think the new one has been updated a little bit. I think GPT-4 might be, if you subscribe to if you can get in to the GPT Plus at the moment. Okay, so what about companies that might be looking to scan resumes? Are you seeing that as well, or is that just not an issue at this point?
You mean the companies that scan resumes?
Like, so if I'm hiring someone and I get a resume, do I scan it and then say, was this written by a human?
So that could be a real issue, because, as you know, college students do this for the thesis and all. Yeah, so there are systems that are built. So I would be careful. Even if ChatGPT wrote your resume, maybe I would make some modifications or change things, change layout, change format. Right. ChatGPT couldn't write you today. It cannot write a full resume for you. It can write sentences for you, but it definitely can write your cover letters for you, for sure.
All right. Yeah. So you brought up cover letters. Is it still necessary to write a cover letter in the 2024 world, 2023, 2024? Do you still need to write one?
I would say yes.
Yeah. How come?
I would say yes. Majority of people will tell you cover letters are inundated. The reason why is because if you search on Google, only 10% of hiring managers are actually reading through cover letters. However, we're talking about ATS systems, so your entire application gets screened. That means if you were to add your resume and cover letter to that application, that means it's going to go through the system together. So it's another way for you to add more keywords, and you'll have more real estate to work with. So that's an advantage of having a cover letter today in 2023 and 2024. And another area I would focus on is, now, say if you were to go into an interview and then they like you, but then they like this other candidate as well, they cannot make up their mind. You have a cover letter. Chances are you get A for effort, you get picked for that.
All right, so at least it shows an indication that the person is more serious about a job than maybe someone who's just making 5,000 resumes and just spitting them out all over the place, right?
Praying and praying versus strategically applying.
Yeah, and are you concerned about some of these automated systems that scan through resumes and in terms of potential bias? I know that was a big issue with a lot of these AIs that have come out where, for example, if they have an engineer, like an IT engineer position, the system would spit out fewer, like it would delete or disqualify female applicants versus male applicants because of the training set behind it. Has that issue, is that still top of mind for everybody, or do you think that the technology has gotten better to eliminate a lot of these biases? Because it's a law in New York too, isn't it? Like the New York City system can't, like the New York City hiring system, you have to prove that your AI isn't biased, right?
Yes, and that's a great point. I don't think the biases are resolved by any means. They're still there. A lot of older candidates often tell me that they're not getting picked by the AI systems because of the word count. That's a real issue as well. And also biases are also there on the technological front. So they could screen it however they like. I don't think there is a certain criteria you can select today to weed out female and male, but that could be a hiring manager thing that they're doing it on the back end, but the system is not smart enough, I would say, to do certainly weed out male and female, because some names could go both ways as well. So that might create some issues. And also if they're doing that, that'll be kind of illegal, right? Yeah. So that's another issue as well. But then again, the ageism is a real issue as well. That's also illegal for employers to not offer you a job because of your age, but it happens because now they can create criteria around it where, do not accept candidates that have more than 1,000 words or 1,000 word count. That could be an issue.
Well, right. So, for example, I think the last time I was looking for a job, I had like 25 years of experience at that point, starting from like the first job I got out of college. And if I listed out all of the different jobs I had since from that time period, you could probably figure out how old I was. And so what I did, so I technically hid a lot of those early jobs. Even though it could show a broader experience of different types of companies that I've worked for, I just focused on what number are they putting in the job posting, and then match that with my resume. It's like, okay, you want 10 plus years of experience, I'll give you 10 plus. Or if you're looking for 15, I'll give you the 15. I would never go beyond the higher number. Is that sort of what everyone has to do now, or to fight off the potential ageism issue?
Correct. And what you could also do is you can create your resume a little bit differently. So say the summary section that we add to the resume. So you can bring in older experience into play right away on the summary section, talking about personal growth attainment. If you have like an older experience that would resonate with the future opportunities, you can bring it in. And then, or team accomplishments, organizational impact type of details, you can bring that up. Or even core competencies, maybe a skill that you excelled at 15, 20 years ago is coming into play. You want to have that in, or even creating a section called career highlights, 3 to 4 major accomplishments out of your career before you put your work history. And even on the work history section, you can segment it to the point where you show 15 years of experience, and anything beyond that, you can call it additional experience and then show it without the actual dates. You could say 2 years here, 3 years here, something like that matter. So then the employer has to ask you questions about when did you work and how did you do this. I mean, all of that. That'll be a conversation that you're having with the employer. That'll be technically an interview. So you can kind of, there'll be body language involved. They'll be seeing you at that point. Yeah. So I think that's a better way to pitch.
Are there specific adjectives or words that people should probably not use if they're worried about ageism or other types of issues that might come up in the bias part of things? Like, for example, if I called myself a veteran technology journalist, does veteran imply old? Like, should I came up, this came up in my brain when we were trying to explain, a brand that we were trying to promote. There was an older brand that we were trying to promote, and I think I used the word legacy, and someone said to me, yeah, legacy implies old. So should you avoid words to describe yourself that might get, that's probably more of a human thing rather than an ATS thing, right? Or do they spit out, do they reject some resumes based on some of the adjectives or, in a resume?
Not so much.
Yeah.
Not so much, because the system, what it does is, if you look at Workday or any of these systems, it just copies and pastes. So someone in IT most likely would copy and paste the job posting to the system, and then you have your application going through. It's directly correlating or matching with that to understand what you have. So if they have put in certain items on the requirements, qualifications, criteria on the job posting, it's directly matching to your resume or your application. So I wouldn't worry too much with the ageism factor unless you're doing these things. If you're saying something like 40 years or 30 years, that's just too much. As soon as someone gets to read it, they'll be like, oh, this person has 30 years of experience. We don't need that much.
Right.
Need that kind of experience. They might be asking for more money. So these preconceived notions will come into play as soon as they get to open this resume. So stay away from aging yourself unnecessarily. And like you said, legacy, right? So if you have used some legacy software, like say MS-DOS, that's something you shouldn't, that's something I wouldn't talk about on a resume nowadays, because how many moons ago was it, right? Or even the older software, the clunky ones that are not even, the companies are not even in business. You want to stay away from that kind of verbiage or lingo, because if it's a technical job, they want to know the latest and greatest, say Python or R or other things that you can bring to the table versus, C#.
Unless you're a COBOL programmer.
Or C++.
Unless you're a COBOL programmer in 1998. And that's when all of those skills were really in demand because of the whole Y2K issue. I guess that then that would be okay to use. What are the biggest mistakes that people make when they're put on their resumes or cover letters? What have you seen? Some of these people that were like, what would you recommend people not do?
So a couple things, right? When you put paragraphs on a resume or even on your cover letter, I would personally would not put paragraphs on a resume, because they just look big block sentences that the employer has to read through, or a recruiter. They would not read through it. They would just skim it through. Instead, have summarized bullet points on the resume all throughout for 35 sentences for 2 pages if you're adding 1,000 words or less. For a cover letter, my recommendation is also have some bullet points, maybe 3 to 4 bullet points right in the middle of the cover letter, and then have maybe 2 to 3 sentences that are paragraphs that you can discuss, but keep it clean, keep it maybe 2 to 3 lines for every sentence that you're adding in. And I wouldn't add more than 2 to 3 sentences into a paragraph.
Yeah,
they're just not.
I've heard basically 3 paragraphs for a cover letter, like express what job you're looking for, tell why you fit, and then express enthusiasm for why you want that job, or excited to learn more or contact me, kind of thing. Okay.
Exactly.
Are typos a problem, or does it not matter with typos?
Yes, it is an issue. The reason why is because think of these hiring, the people who are in hiring or recruiters, they get to see resumes all day, just like me, right? I have myself, in 10 years, I've seen 250,000 resumes. So as soon as I get to see a resume, I can easily check on, and say, you're not doing this correctly, or you're misspelled this word or something. That's because of practice. It's the muscle memory that comes into play. These people are doing the same thing over and over and over again. So majority of the time, they are kind of acclimated to the idea of you need to have good grammar. That person is more, they're communicating well. At the same time, attention to detail is there. So those things would come into play. And then also the third element is tools like Grammarly can come into play as well. The hiring manager or someone who is hiring you or the recruiter might have Grammarly downloaded, or they might have a Grammarly subscription where they're trying to email you, and then now when they open up your resume in Microsoft Word, they just saw multiple issues on it. That might be an issue as well.
Yeah. It feels like common sense, but my wife has gotten a lot of resumes, and she looks at them and she just like shakes her head because she sees typos on these resumes, and I was like, it just shows a lack of effort. There are like you said, Grammarly and spell check and all these other things are out there for to correct those types of things. All right, that reminded me of another question. I'm going to go off book a little bit here. As a human resume. As a human looking at a resume, is there any bias for someone that might use an older email address? Like if you got someone who had their email was AOL.com, for example, I'm going to pick on AOL. If I saw that, what was there was another one, like a Hotmail account. Like if my email address was Hotmail.
And Yahoo.
Or Yahoo, I'd be like, yeah, I don't know if I'd really want to hire this person. Is that a thing, or is that just me being, techist, I guess? Or
Comcast.net.
Huh?
Or Comcast.net. I see a lot of them.
Well,
they're still in business.
Yeah.
So Gmail.com is our recommended email to use, to be completely honest, or Outlook, or something that is kind of more what people are using nowadays. So it just doesn't give the reviewer the idea of, oh, this person is different. Or some of them, the biggest difficulty, even more than the actual email provider, is the fact that some people put in Joe 1975 at yahoo.com or something like that. Yeah. Right. So that is an issue, right? When you put your like birth date, that's a real issue, because when you put that, I even ask people, was this the date or the year you were born? They're like, yeah, how did you know? Well, your email tells it all, right? So I picked on it right away. So that means the hiring manager is more inclined to do the same thing. So you're catching on to certain things like that, little bits of things, but then those are important things for your first impression.
Do you see Generation Z resumes that might not even have an email address on them, and they're just like, oh, well, just text me? Or do you see like an Instagram handle or something like that? Like, I would recommend probably finding at least an email address, right? If you want to be taken seriously for these jobs, correct?
Correct. It's social media is social media. You do want to add a link to your LinkedIn profile, because even though it's social media, it's more of the professional network. So if you click on your LinkedIn profile link on your resume, they should be able to find you on LinkedIn, connect with you. They might also see mutual connections who are connected to you, and also recommendations that you receive. So, and then also your profile, who you're connected to. Otherwise, you can see all of those things.
Right.
But then Instagram or other social platforms are not set up that way. So it's not really recommended for you to add TikToks or other, and unless
you're I was going to say, unless you're applying for like a social media manager position, then you can use your your accounts to show how good you are at something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Say if you have 200,000 followers on Twitter, now you want to share that Twitter handle with them for sure.
Okay. Do you think that people should utilize automation or other tools to, can they still do that without having to technically hire, a job coach or a resume service writer or anything like that? Do you think that there are still, to get to that other past some of these hurdles, or do you feel like that and again, this might be a little biased because that's the service you're in, but, without going to those services, can people do this on their own?
Yes, they can.
Yeah.
If they want to do it themselves, it's going to take a little bit of legwork, but you can absolutely do it today. What you want to think about is, as I mentioned initially, scope. Build out a scope for yourself. Ask yourself questions like what kind of titles, what kind of locations, what kind of salary expectations, and what industries you want to target, because that's what we would ask our clients. So the initial hurdle for a lot of people is, when I talk to them, they're like, I don't know what I want to do, or I'm not really sure if I'm a good fit for this role. Well, find it out yourself. Do a little bit of research. Take a day or two. Sit down and have a cup of coffee while you're doing that. Peruse the internet and find jobs, because majority of these roles are listed on, like, say, job boards like LinkedIn or Indeed and other places. So if you were to look at some of these job postings, you'll see that there's going to be similarities coming up, because these employers, there's so many ways that they could ask for certain details, and they're going to run out of words to ask for certain details at some point. So when you're looking at multiple job postings, you're going to see, cross-functional collaboration. That came up 35 times. So that means that's definitely something that I need to add to my resume. Okay. When you're building the resume, don't just add content for the sake of adding content or inputting, this is a keyword, I better add it. Well, when you're doing that, you're kind of shuffling so much of words and content, the actual meaning might get morphed when you're discussing certain details. So build out a list first is my first first clue of the whole process. Is figure out what they're looking for and then talk about those things on the resume in that order. So if you can put it into a priority list based order, saying, years of experience is number one. Cross-functional team collaboration came up number two. They're looking for specific technology like CRM, number three. They're asking for you to have people skills, number four. So just like going through a list of items would help you to assemble the resume correctly. So yes, it is absolutely something you can do. And also ChatGPT is out there as well. So you could use that platform as well for your.
Okay. Are you also hearing, like, another thing I've heard during the job search was that sometimes companies will put up job postings on their site or through Indeed or LinkedIn or anything like that, but they put postings up for positions that they never intend to fill. Whether it's a legal requirement or, they might have an internal candidate, but there's still a rule that says they have to go and look for outside job possibilities. Is there a way for a job candidate to detect whether the position they might be applying for is a real one? Or is that still a problem that you just have to, guess at that point? How do you address that issue?
So there are many different things that are behind the scenes that you cannot see, right? One of them is that we don't know why they posted a job like that. Is it just because they want to fill in a criteria? They maybe have someone already like a friend or a colleague or someone who wants to start that position, or maybe boss's friend or boss's relatives who would take up that position. You don't know, right? So we don't know why that's happening for the time being, but either way, what you could do is you could do a little bit of research about the company and the standing, and then also their standing in the present market space. Say, look through Google reviews that they have had. Look at Glassdoor reviews. Employees are going to talk about these things openly sometimes, right? So they might come in as unanimous and then talk about, or anonymous, and then talk about these issues online or social media. Peruse LinkedIn as well. If they're more likely posting a role on LinkedIn, they're probably serious because it's expensive to post. Those roles you might find on like ZipRecruiters and Indeed that are a little bit cheaper on the end. So I would even look at, can I look at Indeed and see the same exact posting on LinkedIn? More likely it's a real opportunity, I would say.
Okay. All right. Chewy, thanks again for chatting with us on the show today about this. A lot of great stuff, a lot of great tips. And hopefully if people are looking for a job that is out there, that they'll utilize some of these tools and services and tips. So thanks for joining us on the show.
You bet, Keith. Thanks for having me. Yep. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks for watching. That's all the time we have for the show today. If please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this, and add any comments you have below. Join us every week for new episodes of Today in Tech. I'm Keith Shaw. Thanks for watching.